Redshift here, doing my part to shift perceptions out of the pink and into the red. Since violence and force and sadism and callousness and cruelty assist top men in enslaving women, that is, when men are that way toward women, it helps them enslave those women. Not just in terms of outward enslavement, but I mean like, mental, emotional enslavement. It forces, or inspires, I should say, it inspires those women to be utterly devoted to those callous, sadistic, egotistical top men. And women, like it says in God Emperor of Dune, women are a powerful force. Their blind devotion is power. I read somewhere that Hitler said that he could have succeeded if only he had more devoted followers. A female army or whatever, like seen in God Emperor of Dune, could actually be really powerful because that blind devotion and obedience that women have is a form of power. If you can wield that power, if you can gain that power from women, that blind fanatical devotion from women, and if you can wield it wisely, productively, advantageously, then you can increase your power. Fanatical, unthinking, devoted obedience is a great power to have at your disposal. It's why women used to be men's helpers. It was part of why men used to love women. It was one of women's great values, that they were blindly, fanatically devoted to their man, right? It was, a wife's great value to her husband. It was that she was, a blind, devoted, obedient follower of his. Because women are such, you can get their obedience and their blind obedience. You can get their blind obedience by being callous, sadistic, dominant toward them. You can enslave them the way that O was enslaved in Story of O. You can enslave them like that, and then they'll be utterly devoted to you, like O was to Sir Stephen. Considering the elites can get this kind of devotion from women by mistreating women, by being callous, cold, cruel, sadistic, violent, etc. toward women, and they can get away with it, at least with the violence, because they're top men. She doesn't want to leave him because he's a top guy, and she knows she doesn't have much. Going to the cops is not much use because he's got so much money he can hire an army of lawyers to get him off, even though he's totally guilty and there's tons of evidence against him. You see. So, women don't even bother pressing charges against top guys, even when they're violent, typically, right? Or a lot of times. Maybe not always they don't press charges, but a lot of times they don't press charges, right? So, considering the elites can get this kind of fanatical, blind devotion from women by mistreating women, and women submit to it. They submit and then they become devoted followers of that guy to keep his favor or whatever, especially if he's rich and or very charming and intelligent and has a lot of status. Considering these guys can do this, this is a great power that they have, right? And when they're this way, especially when they're rich and charming and intelligent, and they mistreat women, then she'll be really devoted to him, right? If he has a lot of money and charm and stuff, right? She may just be devoted to a regular guy who's callous, sadistic, or violent out of fear, right? Like if a top guy is callous, sadistic, and violent toward her, if he's also charming, intelligent, and rich, then she'll be truly devoted to him. But if it's just a regular guy who's callous and sadistic and violent toward her, then she may be devoted or submissive to him, but only out of fear, right? Or mostly out of fear. Whereas a top guy who's highly intelligent, savvy, charismatic, rich, good-looking, etc., a guy like this, she will really be truly devoted to. From the depths of her soul, she'll worship him and obey him and to be devoted to him. And because of this fact that you can get female devotion by mistreating women, by being violent, callous, sadistic, etc., this means that the elites, by being evil, are getting and are continuing to be able, they're getting and they're going to continue to be able to get, even more so in the future, they'll be able to get and continue to get more and more women's devotion, right? And therefore also the power that goes with women by being devoted to them. And so regular men, how are they going to deal with that? With the fact that women are going to be more and more devoted to top men as time goes by, because of top men becoming more and more evil, more and more financially powerful, regular men becoming poorer, less aggressive, etc., as testosterone continues to decline. How are regular men going to get women to be devoted to them instead of to the psychopathic top men? It's a really important question. Well, one of the ways that you do it is by just quote-unquote walking away. By going MGTOW. You have to also form your own community so that you're physically walking away by forming your own communes like Pastor Dowell. This kind of thing will scare the shit out of women way more than going MGTOW will. Forming your own communities, all male communities. And it won't just scare them. If these communities are also very strict and harsh and violent even when necessary toward women who break the community's rules, if those communities are like that, then those communities will be just like top men in a sense, and will therefore be able to get women's devotion as well. But the communes will be more able to get women's devotion, or at least will be able to get women's devotion just as much, because top guys have the advantage of money and status and stuff like that, and often, higher IQ and better looks and stuff too. But the communes full of regular guys will be strict and harsh and patriarchal and dominant and violent, such as spanking, and will not allow women to have any authority or power or opinions or anything like that, and will also shield those women or restrict those women from having access to the outside world through the internet, like, not letting her have a phone, letting her, only use the internet with supervision, etc. And, in exchange, those regular guys will get, women who are devoted, obedient, loving, etc. Right? Those guys in the communes will love the women in that commune in exchange as well. Right? Like, they'll love their wife, assuming it's a monogamous commune instead of a MGTOW live-in concubine commune. And then the women will find those guys to be just as appealing, if not more appealing and satisfying than top guys, because top guys are appealing initially, but if the woman is married to such a guy for, 10 years or whatever, she's going to get sick of him. She will. She is going to definitely get sick of him because there's something missing, because he's a psychopath or a partial psychopath. He's unable to love, and she can feel that. Women are attracted to psychopathic guys, but they can't stay with those guys because those guys are not able to love, and that's what women really need. They need love from men. Top guys offer money and status, but regular guys who form communes and stuff can offer dominance. They can be dominant and strong and even violent, such as spanking disobedient women, if you want to call that violence. I wouldn't call it violence, but, whatever. And then, the women will submit and they'll be satisfied because those regular guys in that commune will be able to love those women, and that will make up for the fact that they don't have a ton of money or status or any of the rest of it. And they'll be just as dominant as top men are, because that's their domain where they're in charge in this commune, right? And all the men agree on all the rules in the commune, and all the men agree that all the women have to be submissive to all the men, right? In other words, not like sexually, but like the women none of the women have any authority, and all the men have authority in the commune. So the guy in the commune with the least authority or the least power or whatever has more authority than the woman in the commune with the most authority or power or status or whatever, right? And so women will be attracted to and utterly devoted to their husbands in that commune, assuming that she was a virgin when she married him and she's never cheated. And so it's important to understand that regular men can compete with the psychopathy, with the violent, callous sadism of top men, and the fact that callousness, sadism, and violence is useful in getting female devotion. Regular guys, it needs to be understood, the regular guys can compete with that advantage that top men have. Men can compete with that by also being quote-unquote violent toward XXers by forming communes that only let women in if those women are willing to marry and be faithful, and if those women are virgins, and if those women are willing to be utterly obedient and devoted to their man, and are willing to submit to spanking if they disobey. Men can, instead of beating XXers like top men sometimes do, that is like, hitting them or whatever, regular men can instead spank women. And this will be just as effective in subduing women through pain, but without the dehumanizing aspect, and without the aspect of it being like, such that she is going to feel like she needs to go to the cops over it, or that it like is putting her life in danger. Like, if a guy hits a woman, what that's going to do is make her feel like, she's worthless, but it's also going to feel like, but I'm not worthless. He's abusing me. This is not right. It's also going to make her feel like, if he keeps doing it, and if he, gets more confident about doing it, and he starts doing it worse and worse, she's going to feel like, God damn, dude, one of these days he's going to fucking kill me, right? And then she's going to really want to go to the cops to save her own life, you know what I mean? But like spanking can use various levels of pain depending on how hard you smack the person and how many smacks you give them. And yet, even though you can totally vary the pain and make it really, really extreme, by spanking them really hard and and doing it a hell of a lot, like instead of just spanking them 30 times, you can spank them 300 times, right? Like that's really severe, but it's not putting her in any danger. It's not going to give her, any like, it's not going to damage her body, and it's not going to put her at threat of her own life or anything. So she's not going to feel compelled to go to the cops because of, her life being in danger or anything. You see, so it's greatly advantageous to spank women, and this is actually much better than, beating women like top men do sometimes, right? So instead of being sadists or callous like top men, regular men can be highly patriarchal and dominant and force their women to obey them. Men can be cold, but just because you're cold doesn't mean you're callous and doesn't mean you don't love your woman, right? There's a big difference between coldness and callousness and lack of love. Coldness, callousness, and lack of love are not the same thing. They're all different things. But mainly, I wanted to point out that, coldness is not the same as lack of love, and neither is callousness. Because sometimes, she's going to cry and plead, and the tyranny of tears, right? But you have to be callous. You got to be cold and be like not affected by those tears, because she's just trying to manipulate you with those tears, you know. But that doesn't mean you don't love her, just because sometimes you have to be cold or callous toward her, right? You can still love a woman while being cold and callous toward her when she's being selfish or petulant or childish or whatever. You can and should be stern toward her at times, right? You should be impossible to emotionally affect with tears or pleas or anything like that, especially when she's in the wrong, right? You can and should be righteously angry in a cold way when she misbehaves. So I think men have to realize that being very dominant, walking away, demanding total obedience, spanking women, being cold toward women when they don't obey, and spanking them when they don't obey, and withdrawing sex when they don't obey, and all that kind of thing is necessary. Or else top men will be the only ones being able to get obedience and devotion from women. And like I said, even just from a power perspective, even even if you're like, MGTOW and you're like, I don't care what women think. Well, you should still care, because even if you don't care what women think, it's still true that you're going to be enslaved if you allow the top men to get all the women, because those women will be fanatically devoted to those top men. And they'll become those men's fierce warriors. Maybe not physically, but, in terms of coding and propaganda and all kinds of things, right? And then those women will be even more, dangerous than they already are. Right? Maybe the elites will even form an actual army full of only women. And they'll be even more aggressive, more masculine, more violent than regular men today are, right? And then they'll be able to enslave men because their fanatical devotion, they'll be able to enslave men, right? Because of their fanatical devotion to top men, right? And I don't mean like sexually or domestically. I mean really enslave men, like physically, financially, digitally, etc. These women will be able to enslave men because they'll be fanatically devoted to obeying the laws, the commandments of the top men who will be their masters. So regular men have to master women again, or else regular men will be mastered by women because of women being fanatically devoted to following the commands of top men, and top men using those women as weapons against bottom 80% or bottom 99% men. Not the way they're using women now, but truly as a weapon, like a physical army or whatever even. So, men have to re-enslave XXers, and men can do it by spanking, forming communes to keep XXers out unless they're virgins who want to marry and be utterly obedient to a husband, right? Love makes up for sadism and can actually maybe even put regular men at an advantage over top men in terms of how much devotion they can get from individual women. And since regular men have the numbers, that is, there's way more 99%ers than there are 1%ers, if most regular men get women to be utterly devoted to them, to the 99% men, or the bottom 80% men or whatever, and we bring back monogamy so that most women are devoted to most men, then we will have the power of women on our side again. That female army will be working for us, not the elites. Even if regular men are not able to get more devotion from women than top men can get from women, regular men are probably able to get as much devotion from women as top men can get. And this is because regular guys give women love and top men do not give women love. Like that Taylor Swift song, The New Romantics, which was a song that was quite shockingly frank about female nature. It said, women want excitement and they need love, right? She says we need love, but all we want is danger, right? But, they're only going to pursue danger as long as they're able to get away with that. You take away the ability of them to get love if they pursue danger, and then they will pursue love instead of danger because they need love more than excitement, right? This is Redshift. I hope someone got something out of this. Peace trucks for most top men, because most top men are psychopaths, and psychopaths are the reason the world is 100 times worse than it has to be.